Her grandma sold her for cash, unaware she's the hidden lover of a millionaire CEO, and then she gave him beautiful triplets. $50,000. That's what my grandmother thought I was worth. Nia's hands trembled as she watched the wealthy businessman slide a check across the coffee table. Her own flesh and blood was selling her like property to a man 3 times her age. Hello, my wonderful family. This is your Dr. Phillips, and before we dive in, I have a small favor to ask. If you're new here, take a moment to subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss a single story, because here, we tell the most beautiful love stories in the world. Also, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Drop it in the comments below so we can see how far our storytelling family reaches. Now, settle in, relax, and let's begin today's journey. Nia Blake had always been the responsible one. At 26, she'd spent years as her grandmother's support system after losing her parents in a car accident when she was just 18. While most of her friends partied through college, Nia juggled 3 jobs while maintaining her scholarship, determined to create a better life for herself and the only family she had left. Education is your ticket out, Wilma Blake would say, watching Nia study late into the night. Not once did she offer help or encouragement beyond those hollow words. The apartment they shared in Harlem was small but clean, paid for mostly by Nia's earnings while Wilma collected her modest pension. That Thursday afternoon had seemed ordinary. Nia had finished her shift at the community center where she taught language classes, excited to share news about a potential promotion. She never expected to walk into a negotiation for her own future. $50,000. Final offer, the stern-looking man in the expensive suit said, sliding a check across their worn coffee table. My granddaughter is worth twice that, Wilma countered, her voice carrying no affection, only calculation. She graduated with honors, speaks 3 languages, and has the face of an angel. Nia froze in the doorway, her tote bag sliding from her shoulder and hitting the floor with a thud. 3 pairs of eyes turned to her, her grandmother's, annoyed at the interruption, the businessman's, coldly appraising, and his assistants, embarrassed to be witnessing this scene. Grandma, what's happening? Nia's voice came out barely audible, her throat constricting with each breath. Wilma didn't even stand to greet her. The Winters Group needs a suitable wife for their CEO. It's arranged. The contract is ready. The words hung in the air, absurd and medieval. Nia stepped forward, her shock giving way to indignation. I'm not an item for sale. The man, Winter's lawyer apparently, assessed her coolly, his gaze traveling from her simple blouse to her worn shoes. Miss Blake, this is merely a formality. The arrangement benefits everyone. Your grandmother receives financial security, and you gain entry into one of the most powerful families in New York. I don't know these people, Nia protested, her voice finally finding its strength. I've never even met this CEO you're trying to marry me off to. Hale Winters is a distinguished businessman, the lawyer replied smoothly. 72 years young and seeking a 4th wife after his unfortunate recent widowhood. 4th wife, 72 years old. The implications made Nia's stomach twist. This is insane. Grandma, you can't be serious. Ungrateful child, Wilma snapped, rising from her chair. The familiar look of disappointment crossed her face, the same expression Nia had seen countless times when her efforts weren't deemed sufficient. After all I've done for you, this is your chance to repay me. The words struck like physical blows. After years of sacrifice, of putting her dreams on hold, this was how her grandmother saw her, as an investment finally paying dividends. The CEO requires a wife within 30 days, the lawyer continued impassively. The selection process has been extensive. You're the final candidate. Nia's phone vibrated in her pocket. A text from a number she'd memorized but never saved. Rooftop. Now. Her heart skipped a beat. Even amid this nightmare, his timing was perfect. I need air, she said abruptly, backing toward the door. Don't you dare walk out, Wilma began, her face contorting with rage. 10 minutes, Nia interrupted, finding courage in desperation. I need 10 minutes to process this. Once in the hallway, she ran to the stairwell, taking the steps 2 at a time until she reached the roof access door. This rooftop had been her sanctuary since childhood, a place to escape Wilma's constant criticism, to dream of a life beyond these walls. But now it offered more than escape. It offered rescue. Back in the apartment, Wilma paced nervously. She'll come around, she assured the lawyer. Nia has always been sensible. Mr. Winters doesn't appreciate complications, the man replied, checking his watch. Perhaps we should discuss the possibility that your granddaughter isn't as cooperative as you claimed. Wilma's expression hardened. Trust me, Mr. Patterson. Nia knows her place. But did she? For years, Nia had accepted her grandmother's subtle manipulations, the guilt trips, the emotional blackmail dressed as concern. After all I've done for you was Wilma's favorite refrain, though the reality was quite different. It was Nia who had done everything, worked herself to exhaustion, postponed her own dreams, even ended relationships because Wilma claimed to need her. The truth, which Nia had pushed down for years, now rose to the surface. Wilma had never loved her. She had only seen Nia as a resource to be used, an investment to be cashed in at the right moment. In her childhood bedroom that evening, after the lawyer had left with promises to return tomorrow, Nia faced her grandmother's true nature. "How could you do this?" Nia asked, her voice quiet but steady. "How could you try to sell me to a man old enough to be my grandfather?" Wilma sat on the edge of the bed, her posture rigid. "Don't be dramatic. This is a business arrangement, nothing more. Wealthy men marry beautiful young women every day. I'm not for sale. Everyone is for sale," Wilma replied coldly. "It's just a matter of price, and Hale Winters is offering security, luxury, connections, everything I couldn't give you." "I never asked for luxury," Nia said, tears threatening. "I only wanted a grandmother who loved me." Something flashed in Wilma's eyes, perhaps regret, quickly buried. "Love is a fairy tale for children. In the real world, we make strategic alliances. Is that what my mother was to you? A strategic alliance?" Wilma flinched. "Your mother made her choices. She chose that man over her family, over her future. She chose love," Nia corrected. "And you never forgave her for it." The silence between them stretched, filled with decades of resentment. "The contract signing is tomorrow at noon," Wilma finally said, standing. "Wear something appropriate. This meeting will determine your future." After Wilma left, Nia pulled out a small duffel bag from under her bed. With shaking hands, she began packing essentials, clothes, documents, the few pieces of jewelry her mother had left her. The photograph of her parents on their wedding day went into a side pocket, carefully wrapped in a soft scarf. Her phone chimed with another message. "Decision made?" Nia stared at the words, remembering the conversation on the rooftop hours earlier. The feel of strong arms around her, the whispered promise of protection, the kiss that made her forget everything else. Zion Rhodes, CEO of Rhodes Enterprises, had been her secret for 8 months, a relationship that began by chance and deepened into something neither had expected. Going public would create a scandal. His board would never accept someone from her background. Or so they'd believed. But now, with her grandmother's betrayal laid bare, the choice seemed clearer. Stay and be sold to the highest bidder, or flee with a man she'd grown to love despite all the reasons it couldn't work. She typed back a single word, "Yes." His response came immediately, car waiting outside. Back entrance. Now, Nia looked around the room one last time, at the faded wallpaper, the second-hand furniture, the narrow window that had framed so many of her dreams. This had never been a home, merely a way station on her journey to somewhere else. With her bag slung over her shoulder and her heart pounding, Nia Blake walked out of her grandmother's apartment for what she hoped would be the last time. The betrayal hurt, but beneath the pain lay something unexpected, freedom. 8 months earlier, the Sterling Foundation's annual charity gala glittered with New York's elite. Crystal chandeliers reflected off diamond necklaces and gold cufflinks as waitstaff in crisp black uniforms navigated the crowd with practiced ease. Nia adjusted her bow tie, uncomfortable in the required uniform, but grateful for the catering job. The pay was excellent, enough to cover this month's textbooks for her business management course. She balanced a tray of champagne flutes, weaving through conversations about stock portfolios and summer homes. "Just smile and be invisible," her supervisor had instructed during briefing. "These people don't want to know you exist unless they need something." She was doing exactly that when a deep voice caught her attention. "Excuse me." Nia turned, her professional smile freezing when she saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with skin the color of burnished mahogany and eyes that seemed to see right through her pretense of belonging. "Champagne, sir?" She managed, extending her tray. His fingers brushed hers as he took a glass, sending an unexpected jolt through her arm. "Thank you." His gaze lingered a moment too long before he was pulled away by an older woman in an emerald gown. "That's Zion Rhodes," whispered another server passing by. 34, unmarried, and worth billions. "Dream on, honey." Throughout the evening, Nia felt his eyes following her. When she slipped out to the terrace for a brief break, she wasn't entirely surprised to find him there, looking out at the city lights. "Beautiful view," she said, immediately regretting the cliché. He turned, a genuine smile replacing his public persona. Much better now. The line should have seemed rehearsed, but something in his voice made it sound like a confession rather than a practiced charm. "I'm working," she reminded him, gesturing to her uniform. "And I'm hiding," he admitted. "These events exhaust me. The burden of being rich and powerful." She hadn't meant to sound sarcastic. To her surprise, he laughed. Something like that. "I'm Zion. I know who you are, Mr. Rhodes. And you are?" "Just a server doing her job." He stepped closer, his cologne subtle but intoxicating. "Do you have a name, or should I call you just a server?" "Nia," she relented. "Nia Blake." "Nia," he repeated, as if testing how it felt on his tongue. "Short for something?" "Eugenia. After my grandmother." She glanced at the door. "I should get back." "Wait." He pulled a business card from his pocket, scribbling something on the back. "My private number. If you ever want to continue this conversation somewhere you're not working." Nia stared at the card, torn between practicality and the undeniable pull she felt toward him. "Mr. Rhodes." "Zion." "Zion," she corrected, tucking the card into her pocket. "I'm not sure what you're expecting, but—" "Coffee," he said simply. "Just coffee. No expectations." 3 days later, she called him. She told herself it was curiosity, nothing more. He suggested a small cafe in Brooklyn, far from the corporate towers where he spent his days. She arrived to find him already there, dressed down in jeans and a simple button-up shirt, looking remarkably normal. One coffee became dinner. Dinner became a walk along the waterfront. The walk ended with a kiss that left her breathless, pressing against the wall of a quiet alcove as his mouth claimed hers with surprising tenderness. "I shouldn't be doing this," she whispered against his lips. "Neither should I," he confessed, his forehead resting against hers. "But I haven't felt this alive in years." That night began a secret relationship neither had anticipated. They met in private spaces, a secluded restaurant with discreet staff, a hidden jazz club in Harlem, a boutique hotel where the management knew to be discreet. Always careful, always hidden from public view. "My board would have a fit," Zion explained during one of their evenings together. "Not because of who you are, but because of the distraction, and not because I'm a nobody from Harlem." Nia challenged, curled against him in the hotel's king-sized bed. His fingers traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "You're hardly a nobody. You speak 3 languages, you're earning your MBA while working multiple jobs, and you challenge me in ways no one has in years. But I'm not from your world. My world is overrated," he said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Full of people who want things from me. You're the only person who seems to want me for me." As weeks turned to months, their connection deepened beyond physical attraction. Zion shared the pressures of running a global corporation, the loneliness at the top, the constant scrutiny that made genuine connections rare. Nia opened up about her childhood with a cold grandmother, her parents' tragic death, her determination to build a life on her own terms. In a luxury suite overlooking Central Park, Zion traced the curve of Nia's hip as moonlight spilled across the sheets. "I could get used to this," he murmured, his voice husky with satisfaction. "To what? 5-star hotels and 1,000-count sheets?" She teased, though her heart quickened at his implication. "To falling asleep with you in my arms," he clarified, pulling her closer. "To hearing your voice first thing in the morning." Nia's smile faded. "You know that's not possible." "Why not?" "Because your world would eat me alive," she said softly. "The press would dig into my background, find every flaw, every struggle. I'd protect you. You can't protect me from reality, Zion. Your shareholders would question your judgment. Your social circle would whisper behind our backs." He rolled onto his elbow, looking down at her with intensity. "Is that what you think of me? That I'd be ashamed to have you by my side?" "No," she admitted. "But I think you haven't considered how complicated it would be." The conversation ended there, but the question lingered between them, unresolved. Despite the uncertainty of their future, they continued meeting whenever possible, stealing hours and sometimes entire weekends away from their separate lives. For Nia, these moments became an escape from her grandmother's increasing pressure to settle down properly and the exhaustion of balancing work and studies. With Zion, she felt seen for herself, not for what she could provide or accomplish. For Zion, Nia represented authenticity in a world of facades. In corporate boardrooms, he wore the mask of the calculating CEO. With society friends, he played the charming bachelor. Only with Nia could he simply be himself, sometimes vulnerable, occasionally insecure. always genuine. Their different backgrounds created occasional friction. Zion struggled to understand the financial constraints that shaped Nia's daily choices. Nia sometimes felt intimidated by casual references to experiences she'd never had, sailing in the Mediterranean, skiing in the Alps, dining with celebrities. "Sometimes I feel like we're from different planets," she admitted, after he'd mentioned his private jet, as casually as she might mention taking the subway. Zion's expression softened. "Then I'm grateful for whatever cosmic event brought us together." As their 8th month together approached, the strain of secrecy began to wear on them both. Zion had to cancel plans when business crises demanded his attention. Nia invented increasingly elaborate excuses to explain her absences to her grandmother and friends. "We can't keep doing this forever," Nia said quietly one evening as they lay tangled together in his private penthouse. It was the first time he'd brought her to his actual home, a step that felt significant. "I know," he agreed, his voice somber. "I've been thinking about how to go public." "You're bored?" "Can adapt or find another CEO," he interrupted. "I'm tired of hiding how I feel about you." The declaration hung between them, weighted with implications neither fully understood yet. Before they could discuss it further, Zion's phone rang, a special tone he never ignored. "I have to take this," he apologized, reaching for the device. Nia watched his expression change as he listened, his CEO mask sliding back into place. "When?" he asked the caller. "Are you certain?" "Yes, I understand the implications." "No, I'll handle it personally." When he hung up, his face was grim. "The Winners Group is making moves against some of my holdings. It could get ugly." "Anything I can do?" His smile returned, soft around the edges. "Just be here when I get back." He kissed her deeply, then reluctantly dressed for an emergency board meeting. Little did either of them know that the Winters Group would soon become more than a business rival. The next few weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments. Zion was preoccupied with corporate defense strategies while Nia focused on her final exams. They met when possible, their time together increasingly precious amidst the demands of their separate lives. Then came the evening that changed everything, when Nia walked into her grandmother's apartment to find her future being sold to the very man threatening Zion's company. In the sleek black car now carrying her away from her grandmother's apartment, Nia clutched her small bag of belongings. The privacy partition was up, giving her a moment alone with her thoughts. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "You'll regret this betrayal. Family is forever. Wilma," obviously. Nia turned off her phone, leaning back against the leather seat. The car pulled up to a private entrance of Rhodes Tower, where Zion waited, tension visible in his stance. When he saw her, relief washed over his features. "You came," he said simply, opening the car door himself, rather than waiting for the driver. "Did you doubt I would? I wouldn't have blamed you if you'd changed your mind." He took her bag, his free hand finding the small of her back, a possessive gesture that felt like coming home. The private elevator whisked them to the penthouse floor in seconds. As soon as the doors closed, Zion pulled her into his arms, his kiss desperate and claiming. "I've been going crazy thinking about you with him," he confessed against her lips. "When my security team reported what was happening, you've been having me watched." Nia pulled back, frowning. "Not you. Winters." His jaw tightened. "When I heard he was pursuing a young bride, I had no idea you were the target. Not until today." The elevator opened directly into his penthouse, a glass and steel monument to success with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the Manhattan skyline. Despite having been here before, Nia felt the surreal quality of the moment, stepping fully into Zion's world, leaving her old life behind. "What happens now?" she asked, suddenly uncertain. Zion's expression softened as he set down her bag and took her hands in his. "Now, we stop hiding. The world will know that you're mine and I'm yours." The possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver through her, part excitement, part apprehension. "And what will the world think when they discover you've been secretly dating the nobody your rival tried to buy?" "I don't care what they think," he said fiercely. "I only care about you." As he drew her into another kiss, deeper and more promising than before, Nia surrendered to the feeling of rightness despite all the reasons to doubt. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The headlines splashed across the New York Times business section made Nia's stomach clench. Rhodes CEO announces surprise engagement to unknown Harlem woman. "Unknown," she repeated, setting down her coffee cup in Zion's penthouse kitchen. "That's the kindest description so far. The tabloids are less charitable." Zion looked up from his tablet, where he'd been scrolling through the morning's press coverage. His jaw tightened as he read aloud. Gold digger or true love? Rhodes's mystery fiancé has questionable family connections. They found out about Grandma already? Nia sighed. My PR team warned me they would. Nothing stays buried in the digital age. He reached across the marble island to take her hand. Are you having second thoughts? 3 days had passed since the rooftop rescue. After their night at the beach house, they had returned to Manhattan, and Zion had immediately called a press conference to announce their engagement. No hiding, no gradual revelation, just a bold declaration that sent shockwaves through New York's business and social circles. Not second thoughts, Nia said carefully. More like first worries. I knew it would be bad, but seeing my background dissected in black and white is harder than I expected. The official engagement photo released by Rhodes Enterprises showed them looking polished and happy, Nia's hand resting on Zion's chest to display the emerald-cut diamond that now adorned her finger. The comments beneath the online version ranged from congratulatory to vicious. They'll find worse, Zion warned gently. My security team is preparing a briefing on what might surface. Your grandmother's gambling debts, the time you were detained for protesting that housing development. How do you know about that? Nia interrupted, then shook her head. Never mind. Of course your people found everything. Not everything, he corrected. Just what's in public records. I respect your privacy too much to dig deeper. The irony wasn't lost on her. Privacy was now a luxury she might never enjoy again. Already, paparazzi had stationed themselves outside the tower, hoping to catch a glimpse of the woman who had captured New York's most eligible bachelor. Zion's phone chimed with his executive ringtone. The board, he explained, glancing at the screen. They've called an emergency meeting. Because of us? Officially to discuss quarterly projections. His smile was grim. Unofficially to question my sanity. After he left, Nia wandered the vast penthouse, feeling like an intruder despite Zion's insistence that it was now her home too. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of Manhattan that still took her breath away, but also reminded her how exposed their lives had become. Her phone buzzed with yet another call from her grandmother. She'd been ignoring them for days, but the voicemails kept coming, alternating between tearful apologies and bitter accusations. The latest message played as she stared out at the city. Nia, it's Grandma. I saw the news. Rhodes Enterprises, huh? You've been holding out on me, girl. We should talk about this. Maybe we can turn this whole misunderstanding into something positive for both of us. Call me back. The mercenary calculation in Wilma's voice made Nia's chest ache. Even now, her grandmother saw her only as a means to an end. Diana Foster, Rhodes Enterprises' formidable coup, arrived at noon. Her sleek gray suit and perfect silver bob projected efficiency and authority as she assessed Nia with shrewd eyes. Mr. Rhodes asked me to brief you before tonight's charity event, Diana explained, setting a leather portfolio on the coffee table. Your first public appearance will set the tone for how the world perceives you. No pressure, Nia murmured. To her surprise, Diana's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, I've never seen him like this. 15 years working together, and he's never brought a woman to the executive floor, let alone announced an engagement. The board can't be happy. The board serves at his pleasure, not the other way around, Diana replied crisply, though they seem to have forgotten that recently. For the next 2 hours, Diana coached Nia on everything from which board members had spouses who would try to undermine her to which journalists could be trusted with casual comments. The wealth of information was overwhelming. How am I supposed to remember all this? Nia asked, head spinning. You won't, not immediately, Diana acknowledged. But you're intelligent and adaptable. Zion wouldn't have chosen you otherwise. There was respect in the older woman's tone. Not warmth exactly, but professional acknowledgement of Nia's capabilities. Some will never accept you, Diana continued bluntly. Old money despises new money, and both look down on no money. But if you stay true to yourself while learning the rules of this world, you'll find allies in unexpected places. That evening, Nia faced her first test. The Metropolitan Museum Charity Gala represented New York's social elite at their most judgmental. As their limousine joined the queue of vehicles depositing attendees at the red carpet, Nia fought to control her breathing. Remember, Zion murmured, squeezing her hand, you saved my life once. A few socialites with surgically enhanced smiles can't hurt you. His confidence steadied her. When the car door opened, cameras flashed in a disorienting burst. Zion's hand at the small of her back guided her forward, his body partially shielding her from the barrage of shouted questions. Mr. Rhodes, is it true you've only known her for a week? Nia, did you meet on a sugar daddy website? Zion, what does the board think of your engagement? They moved past the press line into the museum, where the real gauntlet began. Conversations paused as they entered, eyes tracking their progress across the marble floor. Nia felt each stare like a physical touch, assessing her borrowed couture gown, her modest jewelry, the way she held herself beside New York's most eligible bachelor. A tall blonde in a skin-tight red dress intercepted them, air-kissing Zion's cheeks with practiced familiarity. "Darling, everyone's talking about your whirlwind romance. You must introduce me to your friend." The pause was deliberate, the smile razor-sharp. "Alessandra," Zion replied coolly. "This is my fiancée, Nia Blake." Nia, Alessandra Winters. The surname hit Nia like a slap. This woman was connected to Hale Winters, the man her grandmother had tried to sell her to. "Winters," Nia repeated, extending her hand with newfound strength. "Any relation to Hale?" Alessandra's perfect smile faltered briefly. "My uncle. He speaks very highly of you." "Interesting, since we've never met," Nia replied, her voice pleasant but firm. "Oh, but he's seen your file. Quite comprehensive, I understand." Alessandra's gaze traveled over Nia assessingly, though clearly missing some key information about your extracurricular activities. The implication hung in the air, that Nia had been secretly involved with Zion while being considered as Hale's bride. "If you'll excuse us," Zion interjected, his tone making it clear it wasn't a request. "We should greet our other guests." As they moved away, Nia felt Alessandra's eyes boring into her back. "She knows," she whispered to Zion. "Of course she does. The Winters family doesn't like losing, especially to me." His hand tightened protectively around hers. "Stay close tonight. The sharks are circling." Throughout the evening, Nia weathered subtle snubs and pointed questions with increasing confidence. For every person who looked through her as if she were invisible, another offered genuine congratulations. For every whispered comment just loud enough for her to hear, there was a kind word from someone who had known Zion long enough to trust his judgment. "You're doing beautifully," he murmured during a brief moment alone by a display of ancient Egyptian jewelry. "Even Diana is impressed, and she's never impressed." "I feel like I'm taking a test I didn't study for," Nia admitted. "Every conversation feels like a trap. That's because many of them are." His eyes held hers, serious despite his slight smile. "This world runs on information and leverage. Right now, you're an unknown quantity, which makes you both fascinating and threatening." "I'm hardly threatening. I don't know anything about your business. But you know me," he said softly. "The real me, not the public persona. That makes you more dangerous than any competitor." The weight of his words settled on her shoulders. This wasn't just about surviving social scrutiny. It was about navigating a world where relationships were currency and trust was a rare commodity. By midnight, exhaustion had set in. When Zion suggested they leave, Nia gratefully agreed. As their driver navigated the late-night traffic back to Rhodes Tower, she kicked off her painful heels with a sigh of relief. "Well, verdict on your first society event?" Zion asked, loosening his bow tie. "I survived," she said, leaning her head against his shoulder. "But I'm not sure I belong." "No one belongs at first," he replied, stroking her hair. "It's all artifice and performance. The difference is, you recognize that. Most people there believe their own masks are their true faces." Back in the penthouse, Nia stepped out of her gown with relief, letting it pool on the marble floor of Zion's, their bedroom. She caught his appreciative gaze in the mirror as she stood in just her lingerie and the diamond necklace he'd given her for the event. "You were the most beautiful woman there tonight," he said, coming to stand behind her. His hands settled on her waist, warm through the thin silk of her slip. "I was the most scrutinized woman there," she corrected, watching their reflection. The contrast between them struck her anew, his powerful frame, his confident posture, the ease with which he occupied space that came from a lifetime of privilege. Next to him, she appeared delicate, uncertain despite her efforts to project confidence. "They can look all they want," he murmured, bending to press his lips to the curve where her neck met her shoulder. "But only I get to touch." The possessiveness in his voice sent heat coursing through her body. His hands slid up her sides to cup her breasts through the silk, his eyes holding hers in the mirror. "Let me help you forget them all," he whispered, turning her to face him. His kiss was demanding, claiming, as if he needed to reassert their connection after hours of sharing her with the public. Nia responded with equal fervor, her fingers working the buttons of his shirt with newfound urgency. They didn't make it to the bed. Against the wall, his body pressing hers into the cool surface, Zion made love to her with an intensity that drove all thoughts of society judgments from her mind. There was only this, his hands, his mouth, the weight of him against her, within her, the building pleasure that finally shattered her into breathless release. Afterward, wrapped in the massive bed's silken sheets, Nia traced the line of his jaw with gentle fingers. "Thank you for standing by me tonight. I will always stand by you," he promised, kissing her palm. "No matter what comes next." What came next arrived with the morning papers. The New York Post's headline blared, "Rhodes' fiancé's grandmother tried to sell her to rival CEO." The story laid bare everything. Wilma's negotiation with Winters, the contract, even quotes from the lawyer who had been present. Someone had talked, and they had told the ugliest version of the truth. Zion read the article with mounting fury. "I'll sue them for defamation." "It's not defamation if it's true," Nia said quietly. "Everything they're reporting actually happened, not the way they're framing it." He threw the paper aside. "They're making it sound like you were complicit in some scheme to play Winters and me against each other." The implication hurt, but Nia forced herself to consider it dispassionately. "From an outsider's perspective, I can see how it looks suspicious. I was being sold to one CEO and ended up engaged to his rival instead." "This is Winters' doing," Zion growled, pacing the bedroom. "He's trying to undermine us, to make me doubt you." "Is it working?" she asked, suddenly vulnerable. Zion stopped, his expression softening as he returned to the bed. Taking her face between his hands, he said with absolute conviction, "Nothing could make me doubt you, nothing." The kiss he pressed to her lips sealed the promise, but as Nia closed her eyes, she wondered how many more tests their new relationship would face, and whether they would emerge stronger or broken by the pressure. If you've ever felt judged for who you love, or felt like you didn't belong in someone else's world, hit that like button. This journey is just beginning, and the challenges Nia and Zion face will test the very foundation of their love. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to find out if their relationship can withstand the storms ahead. 3 days passed in the quiet anonymity of the hotel suite. Nia moved through the hours like a ghost, sleeping little, eating less, her mind constantly replaying moments with Zion, searching for clues she might have missed. Had she been so blinded by attraction that she'd failed to see the calculation behind his actions? Or was she now allowing hurt to color memories that had been genuine? The truth, she suspected, lay somewhere in between. On the 4th morning, a knock at the door revealed not Zion but an elegant older woman Nia recognized as his COO, Diana Foster. "May I come in?" Diana asked, her tone making it clear this wasn't really a question. Nia stepped aside, suddenly conscious of her rumpled appearance compared to Diana's immaculate gray suit and perfect silver bob. "He didn't send me," Diana said, correctly reading Nia's wariness. "In fact, he explicitly asked his executive team to give you space." "Then why are you here?" Diana surveyed the suite, noting the untouched room service trays and the bed that showed signs of restless nights. "Because contrary to popular belief, I'm not just Zion's employee. After 15 years, I consider myself his friend as well." She settled onto the sofa, crossing her legs with practiced grace. "And as his friend, I'm concerned. He's making decisions that could damage the company." "So this is about Rhodes Enterprises," Nia concluded, disappointment washing through her. "No," Diana corrected. "It's about a man I've worked with for 15 years, who hasn't slept in 3 days and just donated $50 million to a literacy foundation because you once mentioned teaching reading skills at a community center." The revelation startled Nia. She had indeed told Zion about her volunteer work during one of their early dates. She hadn't realized he'd been listening so intently. "He's miserable without you," Diana continued bluntly. "And based on the state of this room, I'd say the feeling is mutual." Nia sank into a chair opposite Diana. "He lied to me." "He omitted a fact that he feared would color your perception of his intentions," Diana countered. "There's a distinction, not from where I'm sitting." Diana's expression softened marginally. "Did you know I've been with Zion since he was just a vice president at his grandmother's company? I've watched him rise to CEO, navigate economic downturns, face down hostile takeovers. In all that time, I've never seen him lose focus, until the day he saw you again at that charity event." Nia looked up, curiosity piqued despite herself. "He knocked over an entire tray of champagne glasses," Diana continued, a rare smile touching her lips. "Because he couldn't take his eyes off you. The great Zion Rhodes, who can deliver a 3-hour presentation without notes, suddenly couldn't form complete sentences." The image was oddly endearing, but Nia steeled herself against its appeal. "That doesn't excuse his deception." "No, it doesn't," Diana agreed. "But it might help explain it." Zion has spent his entire adult life being pursued for his money, his power, his connections. For the first time, he wanted someone who might want him for himself. So he hid the truth about the will. So he tried to create a space where you could fall in love with the man, not the inheritance clause. Diana leaned forward. Was that wrong? Absolutely. Was it malicious? I don't believe so. Nia stood, moving to the window to gather her thoughts. The city sprawled below, countless lives intersecting in their own complicated dances of truth and deception, love and fear. The board has concerns about your relationship, Diana continued frankly. Not because of your background, but because for the first time Zion has something in his life that matters more to him than the company. I never asked him to choose. No, and that's precisely why you're different from everyone else who's pursued him. Diana rose to leave. For what it's worth, I think you're exactly what he needs. But the question is he what you need? After Diana left, Nia found herself drawn to the window again, gazing out at the city skyline. The road's tower dominated the view, a gleaming testament to ambition and power. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. The roof, please. It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. Only one person would suggest meeting on a rooftop. An hour later, a private car delivered her to a Brooklyn address she didn't recognize. The driver led her to a service elevator that opened onto a rooftop garden, lush with greenery despite the urban setting. Zion waited beside a small greenhouse, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him in jeans and a simple sweater rather than his usual tailored suits. Thank you for coming, he said, maintaining a respectful distance. I almost didn't, she admitted. I know. His smile was sad. I wouldn't have blamed you. The city stretched around them, Manhattan's skyline a glittering backdrop across the river. The roof was nothing like her grandmother's dilapidated escape. This was a carefully cultivated oasis, hidden from the world below. Where are we? Nia asked, running her fingers over the leaves of a potted herb garden. My first real estate purchase, Zion explained. A brownstone I bought the year after my grandmother died, before Rhodes Tower, before the beach house. No one knows about it, not the press, not my board, not even Diana. The significance wasn't lost on Nia. This wasn't just a meeting place, it was Zion sharing a piece of himself few had seen. I want to show you something, he said, leading her to a door that connected the roof to the building below. The brownstone's interior surprised her. Where his penthouse was all sleek modernity and his beach house casual luxury, this space felt lived in, personal. Bookshelves overflowed with well-read volumes. Framed photographs showed landscapes rather than corporate achievements. A worn leather couch faced a modest fireplace. This is where I come when I need to remember who I am beneath the CEO title, Zion explained, watching her take in the surroundings. No staff, no security cameras, no business calls. In the master bedroom, a familiar silk scarf lay carefully preserved in a shadow box on the wall, the one Nia had used to bandage his head after pulling him from the burning car. You kept it, she whispered. It was all I had of you. His voice roughened with emotion. Until fate brought you back to me. Nia turned to face him, finding honesty in his eyes where once she might have seen calculation. Why didn't you tell me about the will? Because I was afraid, he admitted, the confession clearly difficult for him. Afraid that if you knew how much finding you again meant to me, you'd see the power imbalance between us and run. Afraid that the will would make my feelings seem manufactured rather than real. And now I'm still afraid, he said softly, but not of the same things. Now I'm afraid of losing you because I wasn't brave enough to tell you the whole truth from the beginning. He moved closer, not touching her but near enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. My grandmother's will does require me to marry before 35 or risk losing controlling interest in the company. That's true, but I've known about that clause for 10 years, Nia. I could have married anyone at any time to satisfy it. Why didn't you? Because I couldn't imagine sharing my life with someone I didn't love completely. His eyes held hers, unflinching. Until you... The words hung in the space between them, heavy with implication. How do I know that's true? She asked, voicing her deepest fear. How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? You don't, he acknowledged. You can only decide if what we've shared feels real to you, if the connection between us is worth rebuilding the trust I damaged. He took her hands in his touch gentle, undemanding. I don't care about the wedding, Nia. I care about you. If you want to wait, we'll wait. If you want to elope tomorrow, I'll make it happen. If you need more time to trust me again, I'll give you that time. The raw honesty in his eyes undid her. Nia searched his face for any sign of calculation or manipulation, but found only vulnerability and hope. "I want you," she said finally, "the real you. No more lies, no more secrets." "No more lies," he promised, his voice fervent. "No more secrets." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing the engagement ring she'd left behind. "This belongs to you, if you still want it." Not as a chain, but as a promise. Nia looked at the ring, remembering how it had felt both beautiful and burdensome. Now, understanding the full context of his proposal, she could see it differently, not as a business transaction, but as a pledge from a man who had found something more valuable than corporate control. "I need one more truth from you," she said, not reaching for the ring yet. "When you arranged our meeting at the charity gala, were you already planning to marry me to satisfy the will?" "No," Zion answered without hesitation. "I just wanted to meet the woman who'd saved me, to see if the connection I'd felt in those few moments during the accident was real. Marriage never entered my mind until I was already falling in love with you." The answer settled something within her. Nia extended her hand, allowing him to slide the ring back onto her finger where it caught the afternoon light streaming through the windows. "No more lies," she repeated. "From either of us." His brow furrowed slightly. "Have you lied to me?" "Only by omission," she admitted. "I never told you that I recognized you immediately at that charity gala. I knew exactly who you were when I pulled you from that car. Your face was all over the business magazines I studied in school." Surprise flickered across his features, followed by a slow smile. "So you knew who I was all along?" "Yes, but I wanted to see if you would acknowledge our past without prompting." She allowed herself a small smile. "I guess we both had our secrets." The revelation seemed to shift something between them, an equalization of power, a sharing of culpability. Zion pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "Start over with me, not as CEO and charity worker, not as rescuer and rescued, but as two people who chose each other despite every complication." His lips found hers, the kiss tentative at first, then deepening as she responded. The passion that had always flared between them rekindled instantly, made more potent by the honesty they'd finally achieved. They moved to the bed without breaking apart, hands relearning each curve and plane of each other's bodies. When he laid her down, their lovemaking was different, more honest, more vulnerable than ever before. Zion worshipped her body with his mouth and hands, drawing pleasure from her again and again until she was trembling with need. When he finally joined their bodies, the intensity of their connection brought tears to both their eyes. "I love you," he whispered against her lips as they moved together. "I've loved you since the moment you saved me." "I love you too," she gasped, the words escaping as her body tightened around his. They came together, the release powerful enough to leave them both breathless and clinging to each other in its aftermath. Later, as they lay tangled in sheets, Zion traced the curve of her hip. "Marry me. Not for any will or business reason. Marry me because we belong together." This time, her yes held no reservations, only promise, only possibility. 2 weeks after their reconciliation, Nia and Zion stood hand in hand in the garden of his Brooklyn brownstone. No photographers, no society guests, no elaborate decorations, just climbing roses, twinkling lights, and 30 of their closest friends. "I was thinking we could use the 4 seasons again," Zion had suggested during wedding planning. "Make a statement after how the engagement party ended. Or," Nia had countered, "we could do something that actually feels like us." The relief on his face had been answer enough. They were both tired of performances. Diana served as witness, her usual efficiency softened by genuine emotion. Zion's executive assistant wiped away tears. A handful of Nia's friends from college and the community center looked on in happy amazement at the unexpected turn her life had taken. Wilma was notably absent. The invitation Nia had sent against Zion's better judgment had been returned unopened. "She's made her choice," Nia had said quietly, tucking the envelope away. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. When asked to recite their vows, Zion surprised everyone by speaking in halting Spanish, one of the languages Nia had taught at the community center. "I learned for you," he explained as tears filled her eyes. "Because loving someone means entering their world, not just inviting them into yours." The reception that followed was more celebration than spectacle. Good food, better wine, and conversation that flowed without the constraints of social hierarchy. Nia found herself laughing more freely than she had in months, watching as the corporate executives and her community center colleagues found unexpected common ground. "You look happy," Diana observed, joining Nia at the edge of the gathering. "I am," Nia confirmed. "For the first time, this all feels real. Not like a fairy tale or a business arrangement, just two people who chose each other. Diana's smile was knowing. The board is already seeing the benefits. Zion's more focused, more decisive. It turns out love suits him professionally as well as personally. And how about you? Nia asked. Has working with the boss's new wife been as challenging as you feared? On the contrary, Diana's expression warmed. It's refreshing to have someone in his life who values his happiness above his success. Too many of us forgot the man behind the title. As their guests departed, Nia and Zion found themselves alone in the garden, dawn just beginning to lighten the eastern sky. Mrs. Rhodes, he murmured, pulling her against him. That's Dr. Blake Rhodes to you, she corrected with a smile. I'm keeping my name professionally. I wouldn't have it any other way. His kiss was tender, unhurried. Ready for Bali? Their honeymoon, 3 weeks on a private island in Indonesia, was everything their courtship hadn't been. Peaceful, open, without interference from the outside world. They swam in crystal waters, hiked to hidden waterfalls, and made love on beaches with no fear of prying eyes. For the first time in their relationship, there were no schedules to keep, no appearances to maintain, no secrets to guard. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, childhood dreams, professional aspirations, fears, and hopes for their shared future. It was during their final week in paradise that Nia first noticed the symptoms, subtle changes in her body that she initially attributed to the change in diet and climate. But when dizziness overtook her during a morning walk on the beach, Zion insisted on calling the private physician who accompanied all his international trips. The diagnosis shocked them both. Pregnant? Nia repeated, disbelief coloring her voice. But I'm on birth control, which is approximately 98% effective, the doctor reminded her gently. Sometimes the 2% prevails. That evening, as they sat on their villa's terrace watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and crimson, the news began to sink in. How do you feel about it? Zion asked carefully, his expression guarded. We never really discussed children. Nia placed her hand over her still flat stomach, trying to connect with the reality growing within. Surprised, scared, but not unhappy. The caution in his eyes gave way to unmistakable joy. Really? Really, she confirmed, smiling as he knelt before her, pressing his palm beside hers. Though I thought we'd have more time just being us before becoming parents. We'll still be us, he promised. Just more of us. Upon their return to New York, an ultrasound delivered another shock. Not 1 heartbeat, but 3. Triplets? Zion repeated, stunned into momentary silence before breaking into a radiant smile. We're going to need a bigger house. We have the tower, the brownstone. Nia began, still processing the magnitude of the news. And now, this, Zion said, unfolding architectural plans for a home outside the city, a place with space for their growing family, away from the constant scrutiny of Manhattan. The pregnancy quickly proved challenging. Multiple gestation came with increased risks, and by her 4th month, Nia's doctor ordered bed rest. Zion rearranged his entire corporate schedule, conducting meetings via video conference from their bedroom and delegating responsibilities to his executive team. The company will survive without your physical presence for a few months, he told concerned board members. My family might not. The choice is simple. Diana stepped up brilliantly, handling day-to-day operations with her usual efficiency while keeping Zion informed of truly essential matters. The arrangement revealed something important. Rhodes Enterprises was no longer dependent on its founder's constant presence. The organization Zion had built could sustain itself. You've created something that will outlast both of us, Nia observed one evening, as Zion reviewed quarterly reports beside her bed. That's quite a legacy. 3 babies and a Fortune 500 company before 40, he mused. Not bad for a former foster kid. The reminder of his childhood, something he rarely mentioned, made Nia reach for his hand. You're going to be an amazing father. His expression softened with vulnerability. How can you be so sure? I never had a model to follow. Because you know what children need most, she said simply. To be seen, heard, and loved unconditionally. Everything you've shown me. As her pregnancy progressed, news reached them of Wilma's legal troubles. Her attempt to forge documents supporting Winter's claim to Nia had backfired spectacularly when the lawyer she tried to bribe went directly to authorities. She's facing fraud charges, Diana reported during one of her regular visits. Winters has distanced himself completely. Do you want me to help her? Zion asked Nia privately. I have connections who could ensure a more lenient sentence. Nia considered the offer, weighing the complicated emotions her grandmother still evoked. No, she decided finally. She needs to face the consequences of her actions. Maybe then she'll understand that people aren't commodities to be traded. At 7 months, contractions started. Despite the medical team's best efforts to delay labor, the triplets made their determined arrival into the world on a snowy February morning, small but healthy, 2 boys and a girl. Zion wept openly when the nurses placed his daughter in his arms, her tiny hand wrapping instinctively around his finger. The boys, already showing signs of the same determination that characterized their father, gripped Nia's offered fingers with surprising strength. "They're perfect," Zion whispered, looking from the infant in his arms to his exhausted but radiant wife. "All of you. Perfect." In the private hospital suite, watching Zion cradle their daughter while the boys slept in their bassinets, Nia felt a completion she'd never known possible. "We need names," she reminded him gently. They had discussed options but made no final decisions, wanting to meet their children first. "Eden," Zion said, looking down at his daughter. "For new beginnings." Nia smiled her approval. "And the boys?" "Elijah," he suggested. "For my grandfather, and—" He hesitated. "Ethan," Nia finished. "For my father." The symmetry felt right, names honoring their past while their children represented their future. Later, when the babies were sleeping and Zion thought Nia was resting too, she caught him standing over the row of bassinets, his expression one of wonder and disbelief. "Thank you," he whispered, looking up to find her watching. "For what?" "For saving me. Not just from that car, but from a life without this." Nia smiled, reaching for his hand. From the ashes of exploitation and manipulation had risen something true and lasting, a love powerful enough to heal old wounds and create new beginnings. Their story, which had begun with a bargain and a rescue, had transformed into something neither could have imagined, a family bound not by obligation or arrangement, but by choice and love. And as Zion leaned down to kiss her, Nia knew with absolute certainty that their greatest chapters still lay ahead. "Eden, stop pulling your brother's hair," Nia called out, rushing to separate the toddlers before tears erupted. At 20 months old, the triplets were bundles of energy and determination, each with their own distinct personality already firmly established. Eden, the only girl and unofficial leader of the trio, had inherited her father's commanding presence and her mother's expressive eyes. Elijah, thoughtful and observant, often watched his siblings' antics with what Zion called boardroom assessment. Ethan, the adventurous one, had never met a height he wouldn't climb or a boundary he wouldn't test. Together, they transformed every space they occupied with a whirlwind of activity, laughter, and occasional chaos. "I've negotiated billion-dollar deals less complicated than getting these 3 to nap simultaneously," Zion remarked, scooping up Ethan before he could execute his escape plan from the playroom. The family home, a spacious estate 30 minutes outside Manhattan, had been designed with both luxury and practicality in mind. The children's wing featured a state-of-the-art nursery that converted easily to toddler-appropriate spaces as they grew. The grounds offered room to explore, with gardens, a small orchard, and a code playground custom-built to keep 3 active children entertained. Yet despite the grandeur of their surroundings, Nia and Zion had created an environment of normalcy and warmth. Household staff were present but limited. Both parents insisted on handling bedtime routines themselves, reading stories and singing lullabies regardless of business demands. "Board meetings can be rescheduled," Zion had declared when his executives protested his strict 5 p.m. departures. "Childhood can't." The transformation in him had been remarkable. The driven CEO still commanded respect in corporate boardrooms, but now photographs of finger-painting sessions and first steps occupied pride of place on his desk. Meetings were scheduled around doctor appointments and milestone moments. When Eden said her first word, data, naturally, Zion had canceled an international conference call to hear her repeat it. For Nia, motherhood had come with its own evolution. After completing her MBA during pregnancy, she had launched a foundation focusing on educational access for underprivileged youth, inspired by her own experiences and funded initially by Zion's wedding gift of $50 million. It wasn't exactly the blender most newlyweds receive, she had joked when he presented the endowment. Now the Blake Foundation had expanded to 3 cities, offering scholarships, mentorship programs, and community resources that had already changed thousands of lives. "Mrs. Rhodes?" The nanny's voice called from the doorway. "There's a visitor at the gate. Security has verified her identity but wanted your approval before allowing entry." Nia's heartbeat quickened. "Who is it?" "A Mrs. Wilma Blake. She says she's your grandmother." The name hung in the air, weighted with complicated history. Zion's expression darkened immediately. "No," he said firmly. "After everything she did." "Let me handle this," Nia interrupted gently. She served her time. Wilma had indeed completed her 18-month sentence for fraud, reduced from the potential 5 years due to her age and health considerations. Throughout her incarceration, Nia had sent photographs of the triplets but declined visiting requests. The separation had been necessary healing. "I'll meet her in the garden," Nia decided. Alone first. Zion's protective instincts warred visibly with his respect for Nia's autonomy. "I'll be watching from the study," he compromised, his tone making it clear this wasn't negotiable. The woman who walked carefully along the garden path bore little resemblance to the commanding figure who had once dominated Nia's life. Prison had aged Wilma, softening her sharp edges and dimming the calculation in her eyes. Her designer clothes had been replaced by a simple dress that hung loosely on her thinner frame. "Nia," she said, stopping several feet away. "Thank you for seeing me." "Why are you here, Grandma?" Nia asked directly, neither hostile nor welcoming. Wilma's gaze dropped to her hands, where age spots now mapped the passage of time. "I wanted to meet my great-grandchildren before—" She left the sentence unfinished, but its meaning was clear in the slight tremor of her hands. "The doctors give me 6 months," she continued when Nia didn't immediately respond. "Cancer, too advanced for treatment." The news hit Nia with unexpected force. Despite everything, this woman represented her last connection to her parents, to her history. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, meaning it. "I don't want your pity," Wilma replied, a flash of her old spirit surfacing. "And I didn't come for money or forgiveness. Her voice faltered. "I wanted to see what became of you, the life you made." Nia studied her grandmother's face, searching for manipulation but finding only weariness and regret. "Would you like some tea? The children will be waking from their naps soon." The relief in Wilma's eyes was answer enough. From the study window, Zion watched the two women move toward the house, maintaining a careful distance from each other. When Nia glanced up at his window, her slight nod told him she was okay, cautious but resolute. That evening, after Wilma had left with promises of carefully supervised future visits, Nia found Zion in their bedroom, reviewing contracts despite the late hour. "You're angry," she observed, sitting beside him on the bed. "Not angry," he corrected, setting aside his tablet. "Concerned. She hurt you once. She could do it again. She's dying, Zion." Which could make her more desperate, not less. Nia couldn't argue with his logic, but her heart held different wisdom. "I need to find peace with her before she's gone. Not for her sake, but for mine. And for our children, who deserve to know their history, complicated as it is." Zion's expression softened as he traced her cheek with gentle fingers. "Your capacity for compassion amazes me. It's why I fell in love with you, even when it frustrates you," she teased. "Especially then," he admitted, pulling her into his arms. "It challenges me to be better than my instincts." Their lips met in a kiss that still held the same fire as their first, deepened now by years of shared experience. His hands moved beneath her silk robe, finding skin that responded instantly to his touch. "The children?" She gasped as his mouth traced a path down her neck. "Sound asleep," he assured her, parting the robe to reveal her body. I checked the monitors. Time had only enhanced their connection. Where once their lovemaking had been fueled by secrecy and new discovery, now it carried the profound intimacy of two people who had weathered storms together and emerged stronger. When they lay tangled afterward, her head on his chest listening to his heartbeat, Nia reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a rooftop rescue to a family of 5, from secrets and manipulation to honesty and trust, they had transformed potential tragedy into enduring love. "What are you thinking about?" Zion asked, fingers playing with her hair. "How different our lives would be if I hadn't stopped that day on the FDR drive," she mused. "If I'd just called 911 and kept going like everyone else, I'd probably be married to some society woman chosen by my board," he said thoughtfully. "Living a half-life, never knowing what I was missing. And I'd be teaching languages at the community center, dating men my grandmother deemed suitable. Instead, we have this." His arm tightened around her, protective and grateful at once. "This," she agreed, thinking of their children sleeping peacefully down the hall, the foundation changing lives in her name, the partnership that supported both their dreams. Everything. In the years since their unconventional beginning, they had built something neither could have imagined alone. Rhodes Enterprises had expanded its philanthropic focus under Zion's leadership, while maintaining its position as an industry leader. Nia's foundation had become a model for educational equity programs nationwide. Together, they were creating a legacy beyond wealth, one of compassion, opportunity, and family values. "We should renew our vows," Zion suggested suddenly, "for our 5th anniversary. Not for the press or the board or anyone else, just for us and the children." "I'd like that," Nia said, smiling at the thought of Eden as a flower girl, the boys as ring bearers, likely running in opposite directions. As dawn light began filtering through the curtains, they finally drifted towards sleep, wrapped in each other's arms. Their story, which had begun with a bargain and a rescue, had evolved into something richer and more complex than either could have imagined, a tapestry woven of choice, forgiveness, growth, and unwavering love. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been missteps and misunderstandings, moments of doubt and difficult truths. But the foundation they had built together stood firm, supporting not just their marriage but the 3 young lives they had created. And as they faced the future together, with its inevitable challenges and joys, they did so with the certainty that came from choosing each other again and again through darkness and light. If you've enjoyed this story of transformation and love that defies expectations, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Every family has its challenges and triumphs. What lessons have you learned from your own journey? Subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us of the power of true connection and the beauty of second chances. And remember, sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most beautiful destinations.